Pete, thank you for taking this time to come here and do this with me because I've admired you for a long time. And it's been true. When I first saw you at the Shirogane nursery school, was it considered nursery school?
International school, yeah.
International school,
yeah,
right? You was
preschool,
there.
yeah.
And you look like the picture I'm going to throw up. You had long hair, but you had it in a ponytail then. And I could tell from your accent, I thought you were English. And you said, no, I'm from South Africa. So tell me a little bit about yourself. You're from South Africa. You've been in Japan how long?
This year will be my 30th year, actually.
Okay.
I arrived in 1991. Yeah, born and bred South African, went through school, went 2 years in the military, which we had to do during the apartheid times.
Right. When did apartheid end? What year was that it ended?
Formally, Mandela was released in, I think, 92, 1 or 2, and 91, I think. And the new government was formed in 94 when he was elected president. So that's kind of the official start of the new government, 1994. Yeah.
Now, how did it affect you? I mean, apartheid.
Well, growing up in white South Africa, one just is used to things as they are, as anyone who grows up, you know. As Mandela said, racists are created, they're not born. So you're born into a situation and you learn things from the people around you. I was from the Cape, which was always accused of benefiting from apartheid but voting against the government, which is we were the lone representative who was against in the opposition, who was always voted against the apartheid. Her name was Helen Suzman. She was
okay. So the Cape was always against it. They were always trying to make things.
Well, no, not really.
Okay.
Just trying to be a little bit less racist, perhaps.
Okay. They were the first virtue seekers.
I think the rest of the country often accused the white people from the Western Cape of having the best of both worlds because they could be righteous and indignant. We don't support this government, but we still lived off all the benefits of being white in an apartheid system.
Right.
Our schools were all white. The government schools, extremely. There were, you know, conditions of almost private schools. We had lovely fields for everything. And not a black or brown person in sight anyway. They all had their own schools, which had dirt fields and were just
even the colored.
Yeah, everyone. There was sort of the apartheid was pretty much a divide and rule. I don't want to get into a whole political thing, but the divide and rule. So everyone was kept separate and made to rank. So the whites were at the top. Then you probably got the people of Indian descent, Malays, Muslims and Hindus, and then you got the coloured, and then you got the black, really.
Okay.
And in the Western Cape, they had this thing that was called the Labour Preference Act, where jobs were reserved for the brown people, called the coloured people in the Cape, but they were sort of lighter skinned, either mixed race or descendants of the Khoi and the San people and things like that.
So easily I would be a coloured.
Your colour, yeah. I mean, but who cares? I mean, who knows, really?
No, but I mean, I'm saying, I mean, in South Africa, I'd be considered coloured. They would not consider me black.
No, and unfortunately in these days, it's very difficult to get anywhere in the South African government, although if some of my ANC friends will see that they might disagree with that. You've got to be black to be in the government, really. The brown people in the Western Cape, they get marginalised. Yeah.
Right. Well, that somewhat happened to me in the US too, because when I was growing up, as far as girls go, when I was growing up, if the girls got light-complected black guys, they really had to catch. Yeah. And we call the guys like high yellow, whatever. And they said, and we have a term, kitchen. The back of your hair told the truth. If you had any white blood or Indian blood in you, the hair back here would be nice and straight.
Okay.
If you didn't, it'd be curly. So girls wanted the guys with the straight hair in the area they called the kitchen.
Interesting.
So I was too dark to be considered for that. Okay. Then civil rights hit.
Black power. Black
power.
Yeah.
I'm black and I'm proud.
Yeah.
And the girls, the darker the guy, the curlier his hair back here, the more in pill he was, and I got passed over again there.
You lose it twice over.
What can I say? Hey. But anyway, so they do that. They had that system set up in South Africa.
Set up, yeah.
And now it's reversed.
Now it's
it's not reversed.
It's not reversed, but it's more like the rest of it was more class now as opposed to color. And you know, you get idiots of all complexions, as we know, and you get good people of all complexions, you get wealthy people of all complexions, you get poor people of all complexions. It just was so much so that historically what was done in the name of apartheid, it's going to take, you know, even in 1994 people said it's going to take generations So maybe it's been one generation. It's still, the equality is not there.
Yeah.
The white privilege abounds all the time, and enormous, corruption amongst wealthy people of any color, race, or persuasion.
It's more magnified. It's just magnified because it doesn't mean that the people are more corrupt. It's just that they can express it more.
And
it's like they have more energy to express it with.
Oh, so that's interesting because it's very blatant. The corruption is not hidden. Any country has corruption.
Right,
this
right. That's
country,
true.
America, anyway.
That's true.
White South Africa.
That's
People
right.
take care of their kind.
That's right, of course.
And Johnson's boy, let's get him in here. That kind of thing. Still going on, but the people who are in power now don't seem to hide it at all. And they're blatant, and they won't. They get found out, they won't resign, and they say, "No, it wasn't me." Kind of just deny. And
wait, you mean to tell me that the president we just got through having wasn't the first to be like that?
President, you're talking about Zuma, right?
No, the president my country, America, just had.
Oh, that guy.
Okay, I'm not going to say anything
Don't
about
start there, please.
Okay, let's not do
He
that.
should not be named.
Because he's doing exactly what he tried to do exactly what you said they're doing blatantly. That's what you said. So I'm saying, you tell me he wasn't the first? So, no.
Well, Trevor Noah, the comedian,
I know. He's South African, right?
He's South African. When Trump got in, he said, "Finally, my president's not the worst one in the world."
Tell me about it.
Yeah,
wow.
that's
So
crazy
anyway,
stuff.
so you went to the Air Force after that, then you
Went to the
decided
Air
to what?
Force, and I realized one thing about what had been going on while I was in the Air Force with this compulsory conscription is we weren't fighting from an external enemy. We were fighting the internal people.
But that's what you were being told.
Of course,
You were led to
we're
believe.
indoctrinated. Our history books, I can still remember when they said the first white people, which weren't necessarily the first, but they were the Dutch people that came in the 17th century. When they arrived, there was no one there. It's like, well, you happen to have nomadic people who moved around with their cattle and came back every now and then. And when they came back, all these white guys had put up stakes and pens and said, "This is our farm," kind of thing. I mean, I'm simplifying the whole
I know,
thing,
I
but
understand,
in general, that's the. Our history books did say that there was no one here, and it took me until in my late teens, early 20s to find out that that's absolute bullshit. That that was not the case whatsoever. And this is why I hate revisionists. I hate revising history, and both ways as well. I don't like people trying to deny the history of racists and colonialists who did what they did in the time. Right. Or you want to Me Too someone who was 16 when he did some bad behavior with a woman who.
You're right.
I mean, maybe that's not PC to say, but I do feel that. And there's this Rhodes Must Fall. Cecil John Rhodes. Right. We were taught one of the heroes of South Africa. He was a racist pig, man. He just exploited everyone and everything. And yeah, sure, but to deny that he existed is wrong. Take his statue down. We'll put his statue in a museum. You get the same thing.
I see what you're saying. Oh, I got you. Okay, yeah, that's interesting.
You got Confederate generals in this, similar to this, that kind of thing.
But you weren't raised with. You had privileges, but you didn't have the privileges that most whites thought you had. Let's say the above average. You weren't living the life that. Okay, let me do it this way. Okay. In South Africa, I was led to believe all South Africans that were white had mansions for homes. They all had a boat right there at the dock. They all drove the most expensive car that was available then, and they had tons of servants. That's how I envision all white South Africans.
No, not at all. So we were, I guess, what
you mean that vision was wrong?
That was very much wrong, yeah. Okay. There were working class white people who worked on the railways, often worked as fitters and turners, mechanics, things like that, which was sort of blue collar. And nothing wrong with blue collar. But those jobs as a black or brown person, you couldn't get them because they reserved those for the white people who had maybe schooling up to the age of 15 or 16 or something like that. I was neither of my parents went to university, but we were sort of expected to go to university because we were in a culture which was educated and wealthy. We were at the bottom end of that, perhaps, in terms of monetary wise. Like my mom would sometimes, we'd go out to eat once a week, but at the end of the month we'd say, "Oh, no dessert this time." There wouldn't be money to buy dessert.
Right. It's just three of you too. You have two brothers.
I had two brothers. That's correct.
Two brothers, yeah.
And so that kind of thing was perhaps unusual. South Africa, one thing we won't know about South Africa is that I grew up without television. Not my house, the country. our country, South Africa, got television in 1976.
What?
Yeah, nobody knows this stuff.
Wait,
I listen to the radio, man.
Wait, just a minute. Wait. Come on, wait. Did you have any of the modern cars?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you had all the latest cars.
Yeah, a lot of them were made in South Africa, they repurposed and with factories there, they were given South African names. But because, especially during the whole divestment, as things got, people didn't want to be associated.
Right.
But growing up in the 60s and 70s, TV was seen by the South African government as it's going to encourage sinning.
Even the people that had money to be able to get it, they didn't have.
No, there was
no
broadcast.
No signals. There was no way to be able to.
There was not. When TVs first came out, they got the best of the best, of course. And everyone got that. We were the only guys with a black and white TV. In our whole,
oh wow, they still have those.
My friends would come and say, "No, you've got to adjust the colour." I said, "No, we're going to. No, Pete, there's a colour. I don't know where that button is." So I'm telling you, it's a black and white TV. No one had ever heard of it. Because my mom wanted a TV because nobody had a TV ever.
Okay.
But she couldn't afford a colour one. So we, middle class poverty.
But you had access to all your friends. They didn't discriminate so much that they didn't invite you over to parties, and you got to have access to their homes.
Same school. We all wore uniforms at a public school,
right?
Government school.
Right.
There was like your fee that you had to pay, and then there was the voluntary fee. And I think my mom didn't pay the voluntary; she just paid the fee.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
And then the voluntary fees covered a lot of the benefits. And things like
so you had access to wealth. So you got to grow up around wealth.
I grew up going horse riding on my friend's farm, going windsurfing on my friend's, going water skiing, and having holidays. Having a black woman who had much less money than we did, working for us and living with us in the home, raised practically especially my younger brother, one woman in particular.
Did you ever feel any resentment or anything of your friends for not having what they had?
No, I was not really material in that way. No, it didn't bother me. We seemed to have enough,
And you had a lot of love with your brothers and being around.
With my brothers and friendly, and South African life, white South African life was very comfortable, very friendly. Going to the beaches on weekends.
So you didn't have very many wants.
No.
Yeah.
No. I mean, sometimes Mum would say, "Well, that's not going to happen in our family. It's not going to happen."
Okay.
And the one thing she also did, she was struggling to get by, and when you go through this sort of 16-year-olds and your parents are out and you start the car and you take the car for a spin, she said that's one thing you guys do not do, because their car crashes.
We're done.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
and you didn't. Yeah.
No, but we'd always be with their friends, helping them push their car. Get it out the way and just drive off to the party and turn up. Hey, we're cool.
You're cool. You're good to go. You're good to go. So after the military, you traveled. You traveled quite a bit too, right?
I spent a year. Yeah. One of the things I thought that this apartheid was not normal. I was beginning to question what was going on. I first heard of when Biko was killed in '77, right? And after the '76 Soweto riots, first heard of Mandela at that time. I was 16 at the time, I guess. Started questioning things. Not enough to avoid the military. Friends who older would defer their studies to go to university first, would then be conscientious objectors. And I had a couple of friends who did that and had to serve civil prison time. South Africa made it a civil law to object to call up.
And how much time would you spend if you broke the civil law?
Time and a half of what you would do. So if you were due for 2 years of training, plus another plus another 2 years of camps you had to make up in 10 years. So time and a half, and that's 6 years in prison you could get sentenced to for refusing your call up.
Did you know anyone that?
I knew people, not to do 6. The first one was a year, and I knew people who did that year. But by the time, I don't know if anyone actually served 6 by that time. That was the writing was on the wall that apartheid was.
This might be a silly question. Did they have any blacks in the military? They had
yes, permanent force. Yeah, people had signed up.
They considered permanent.
Well, you signed up like a job, like you were in the military, right?
Okay, I was in the Air Force. I was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
No, I was drafted during Vietnam. I'm a little bit older than you, so I was Vietnam. Yeah.
But you don't look at me.
No, but so I was right out of college. My first year in college, I got a draft notice, and we had a lot of people fleeing up to Canada and coming up with fake back reports because they didn't have CT scanners then. We didn't do that. I don't know. Maybe someone I didn't hear about that one, but we heard about that. And some guys would try to be pretend that they were of a different persuasion, and they would let some of them go. Some of them they'd say, "Okay, prove it," or whatever. So I went in. I enlisted.
So some of my friends did leave the country and go into exile. Scandinavia was pretty big for accepting, and the Netherlands. A lot of people would go to the Netherlands, and they could get refugee status there. I had considered that after my 2 years, when I was later, I became more involved in the anti-apartheid struggle. Then I was more thinking about that, but to go into prison for those many years just to see if
Oh, you thought you could try to tough it out?
do the conscience objection. Yeah, I had thought about it.
But not that long, right?
Actually, one of my friends said, "Pete, don't be fucking crazy." I said, okay,
It wouldn't be fun. It's not a picnic.
No.
It's not fun times. Yeah.
Jehovah's Witnesses, they were all.
They're exempt.
They won't pick up an
exempt.
arm. Yeah. No, not exempt. No.
Oh, they went to
They
jail.
were punished. Yeah, the whole time in jail.
Because I knew one guy that was they didn't have to go in the service because their religion doesn't allow them to take anything externally, so they don't take shots. And that was Christian Science, not Scientology, but Christian Science. They don't believe in shots, immunity, any of that. And in service, you have to take those shots. And they would let them become exempt. They didn't have to go in. But they'd have to verify that they truly were Christian Scientists. So anyway, so you finished that.
So finished that, and then what I realized was I need to get out of here. I need to get out of here. So I told Mum, I bought myself a 1-year ticket, and I said, I'm going to stay away a year. And I flew off to Israel and worked on a kibbutz. I had a lot of friends who were Jewish, and actually the school I was at was a government school, but we had a huge 35, maybe 40% of Jewish.
That's what you're telling me in South Africa. There's a lot of Jewish people there.
Yeah, I mean, so I got connections. I went and turned up on a kibbutz, and I was going to be there for a month. So, but I ended up spending 3 months there. I just got into it, and then I thought, wow, this is quite easy to sort of stay here doing nothing because you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to think, and everything's just very easy.
So there were no classes or anything. It was just you just take care of your chores for that day.
Yeah, you worked. You were assigned. You know, I worked in the chickens, or I worked in the orchard.
But they didn't have like classes for higher education
or anything? No, nothing.
So you just did your chores, and after that, it was your time to do whatever you wanted to do.
Afternoon, and you just hung out with the other volunteers. You were kind of separate from the people who lived in the kibbutzniks, they were called. We were the volunteers.
Okay.
So it's like second class citizens.
Right. You guys had police, so you guys.
Yeah, I'd been in one council in Africa, so it was good to be on the other side there, you know. So we just did that.
Okay.
You know.
Wow.
Yeah, and so then I moved around Europe mostly from there because with the South African passport at the time, I couldn't go to Eastern Europe, couldn't go to many places. I managed to weasel my way into Yugoslavia. Okay. But nothing was stamped on my passport to allow to show that. And they gave me this special pass. They kicked me off the train at the border first. I was traveling with an American woman at the time, and I said, "Oh, here we go." There's the guy came looking, waving these passports, looking for it because they usually had to hand your passports in. So then anyway. But yeah, traveled through, went through Greece, sort of Yugoslavia, Italy, sort of checking, Europe on $5 a day, scrounging my food. Right. Going to places like the American club where people would hang out, "Oh, are you finished with that? Thank you."
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Did you really?
Sure did.
You're in the nice places, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you used to be, but you were used to being around wealth. I mean, there was something that's familiar to you too, anyway. In South Africa,
it didn't make me feel
any
less.
That's what I'm saying. So
hungry.
Right. See, but I think the people that aren't grown up around that and don't have access to it, it's a bit intimidating, I would think. It's just like most people. They won't even go into a shop that's high end if they don't think they can afford it. You know what I mean? Because if they haven't been around it and that's their dream, they just won't even do it.
You're probably right. I didn't feel I could go with my torn jeans and t-shirt or something, and I'd walk in and I'd be able to acquit myself, responsibly and know what to do and say what to say. Because yes, I was fortunate enough to grow up with.
And you knew how they,
society, and I know how that works. Yeah.
That's right. So then you decided to come to Japan after that. What made you decide?
Then I went back to South Africa.
South Africa, okay.
And I went to university after that only. So I'd been out of school for 3 years out of high school. So I was a bit of an older student. I sort of turned 20 in my first year of university. I did a BSc in actuarial science. I got my university fees paid for within South Africa. They have these things called a bursary. A company will pay for you, and you're going to go work for them. Okay. But they pay you same rate as you would if you just applied with the same qualifications. So I just had to work for them for the 3 years that they'd paid for me to study. Okay. And during that time, I kind of realized this wasn't for me, working in the actuarial department of a big life insurance company. It was okay. People say, "Oh, you must have hated it." No, I didn't hate it. I mean,
were you at the desk most of the time, or did you go out?
No, I was at the desk.
The whole time.
Either in investments or in pensions or in we were just learning stuff. And basically, the actuaries ended up being the sort of the senior management and the general managers. They were always actuaries of most big life insurance companies. So to become an actuary was a lot of after college studies, after university. There was more exams to write. I ended up not finishing that because I knew the last couple were very, very difficult to do.
Okay.
There's an article was right. Average time to become an actuary was 7.1 years. So
and you said, I'm not going to.
No, I just didn't. I said, no, I'm not going to do that because it's not what I want to do. I had met this, picked up a hitchhiker once, and she told me about this system of education called Montessori, and it's just amazing, and kids are free to do what they like to do, and there's boundaries, but there's freedom, and it's all. So that sounds pretty interesting. I'd been thinking of education, mostly perhaps being a lecturer or something like that. And I went and visited a school, and it blew me away. I'd never seen anything like it. And I said, this is what I want to do.
In South Africa?
In South Africa.
Okay.
And I told my mom, and she said, oh, you want to be a nursery school teacher? Because I said, well, put it like that, yes, I do. That's what I think. I don't know. I just know I don't want to be this actuary type person.
Right.
So, and I went to study in London. There's one of the places you could study. And on that course, I met a lot of people from all over the world, and one of them happened to be a Japanese lady who I'm still married to today.
Okay, you weren't married to her then?
No, we just met towards the end of the course, and she came back to Japan, and I stayed in London for a couple of years working. We did a long distance thing.
Oh, so you did start dating when you were in London?
Right towards the end of the
at her time when she's about to leave?
Yeah, we were literally within about a month of her about going to leave, I think, yeah.
Oh, you went, okay.
You know, as I said to you once, I don't plan my life. I just happen. Things just fall.
I know. So just before she left,
we got together.
Okay, and then you had a long.
We'd been speaking, of course, knew each other. We were both quite into movies at the time, and our romance was just seeing lots of movies at this sort of the Everyman Theatre in Hampstead, which was just the hip and cool man. So that kind of stuff. It was good. And then she'd come over. She was working at Saysan International School.
Okay.
And she'd come over for holidays, maybe once a year at least, maybe twice, and spend a long. She had the summer holiday, and we'd be together in the summer. And then I said, okay, maybe I should try and come over here and see what that's like. Because international schools that she was working in, I was working in a local British school.
Right. I
think my first year I saw £600 a month I was getting. It's about $1,000, right? About $1,000. So. Anyway, I was able to live on it very frugally, but she was telling me about this, you can get a reasonable salary and it's quite good, and why don't I come and try? So I came over with my backpack, my skateboard, and 90,000 yen.
What year was that?
1991.
1991.
Yeah, 30 years ago.
1991. Wow.
And then I got the job at Shirogane, and I think I met you either in 91 or 92.
It was 91. You were just right there.
I was right.
Ponytail, everything else. Yeah, you sure were. You sure were. And I had my third son going to Shirogane. That was Lonnie, the one that just got married.
But when I started, Lonnie wasn't there yet. I think Lonnie wasn't even born yet, man.
Then I had Lewis there.
You had Lewis there? Lewis was there, yeah.
Lewis and
Lance, I didn't know. He'd been there before me, I think.
He'd been there. No, he didn't. I think
he didn't go there.
No, he didn't. He went to UNITA, which is another nursery school. Yeah. And then from there, because we helped them, we had him there. And then from there, I put him in the British school.
I remember you were...
I put him in ASIJ first, then the British school. Then I took Lonnie, he went to the British school, Lewis went to the British school, and then from there...
your philosophy, you thought the British school early had a good thing.
Yeah, and then from there, then I had them homeschooled, then they went back to Japanese school, then they went to international again.
Yeah. So that's Shirogane days, that was 91, and that's when I met you.
Yeah.
And you came with your I Can...
That's right, T-shirt and everything, probably.
Yeah,
it sure did. And then we didn't keep in contact, but I see you around. Yeah. And then the next thing I heard, you'd started your own Montessori program.
That's right. So
I worked, and it was at the Jewish Center too.
The Jewish Community Center.
Jewish Community Center. And I said, look at this guy, he's no joke.
Yeah.
I was thinking, because you didn't say. It's not that we had coffee together or anything. I just saw you, spoke to you once, and said hello. Found out you were South African. We talked. You were pleasant, but you were never working with my kids.
No, I wasn't.
I was working with Keiko Shoji and then this Indian woman and stuff, but I never worked with you. And then I think you reminded me, but once I was taking you somewhere for some reason.
We were driving around a bit because my day was quite easy then. We were finishing school.
Yeah. Or maybe I probably saw you then and said, let's get together sometime and have coffee, and that's what we did. Yeah. And you let me just
And you would
regurgitate all my feelings
Yeah, it was awesome.
out
though.
and stuff. And I figured I'd never see this guy again anyway, so why not? So maybe
And all the secrets
what
you
did-
told me.
I said I'm not going to see him again. And that's
Yeah.
something I used to do.
Yeah.
I know
Okay.
people wouldn't be here long, and I'd befriend them just before they leave, and then say, "Boo, and what do you think?"
Can you bounce some ideas off them?
Yeah, and just see what they thought. And you ended up staying. You're still here.
I'm still here,
You're still
man.
here.
Yeah.
And I always came to all of the stuff you've watched. It's been you've been here through both of our journeys. I've been watching you. You've been watching me. It's been interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, so after 2 years, I worked at Shirogane. I met. I started doing Tai Chi, and my
Okay.
Tai Chi instructor was an Israeli guy, and his wife had this little 3-morning-a-week daycare at the JCC, and she was leaving him and her. They were leaving to go back to Israel, and he wanted someone to take over his Tai Chi business, and she was looking for someone to take over this business, this little play group.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the person who was working at the time, she said, I'd like you to do this with me. She was also doing Tai Chi with them. So I said, well, it'd be great. And so she said, well, they want to sell this school. I said, well, I've got absolutely no money. So she said, don't worry, I've been saving a lot. I'll pay for your half. So she made us 50-50 partners in a school with 100% of her money. And I paid her back over a period of about 18 months. Isn't it amazing?
Isn't that beautiful? Well, she could see something in you. Obviously. So, what'd your wife do with all this?
She was working at Seisen.
Okay.
And because of that, our kids were able to go to the internationals. Well,
Right.
the choice was Seisen or St. Mary's, and we had a boy and a girl, so that's what they
Mm-hmm,
did.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And then
She stayed there until they graduated?
no.
Because she came and started working with you.
Yes. So after a while, the school started doing well, and then my partner left, the 50% partner. And I said, well, what about this? She said, well, I'd like you to buy that from me. And I said, well, we're same position again. I've got no money. She said, same deal, just pay when you get it. She did it again.
This one was Israeli.
She was Israeli, yeah.
Okay. Wow.
So she really helped me.
Well, that's because
on
you've
the
been in the
path.
kibbutz and everything else, and she
Yeah,
knew.
and then I
you could
turned up
speak
at the
to-
JCC.
You knew some of the things there.
Like a little
Jonah,
bit of
you know,
Hebrew,
yeah, you knew
like
some Hebrew, you could do it,
accountant,
right.
Montessori,
Right.
da, da, da.
Yeah, right. And if you did everything right, yeah, you could be here.
So that was her, and then I carried on, and then the school sort of just built a good reputation. Small school. We had about
I know it
20
did. It
people.
had most definitely did because people would ask me
Yeah.
because the gymnastics program
Right.
where I thought was good, and I would always recommend Montessori
thank you
as
for
one
that,
of them.
Mark.
Yeah, I did because your reputation was good. It's not because I'd gone to it. It's
Right.
because what I was hearing, and people would tell me.
Mm.
They say no, it's not for everyone, but for who it is for, it's
Mm.
good, and he does a good thing. I remember when you were giving the classes for the parents.
Oh,
At the
right.
place you have over here, they were telling me all that because some of them were the people in my program there. And I'm thinking, wait, I can teach you the same thing. He said, no, he does it early in the morning. He gets the dads together sometimes and says,
you remember
look,
that? Oh, yeah.
yes.
We said
And I said, well, what does he say? I said, is it conflicting with the stuff? I tell you, the I can policy, not at all.
Yeah, we used to have the Montessori power breakfast.
That's
'Cause
right.
The working dads, and they said they felt disconnected. So I said, okay.
You got them connected.
At 7 o'clock in the morning. We meet from 7 till 8. Just
How many people, what kind of groups would you
maybe
get
like
there?
5 or 6.
But it was
most
good,
days.
huh? And they were serious, weren't
Yeah,
they?
the ones who wanted to find
Yes.
out. And I would tap into them. I basically would say, well, how does business work? I've never seen myself as an entrepreneur. One guy said once to me, he said, Pete, you're an entrepreneur. And I said, no, I don't think so. He said, yeah, you've got your own little business. You should come and talk. I said, well, what would I talk about? He said, well, your strategic plan. I said, my strategic plan is what shall we do tomorrow? That's all I had. So it was interesting to hear people get advice from people. I mean, you're a big one on that.
That's
You
right.
ask for people, love to give advice.
Don't they? And nobody
sometimes
ever asks them
people-
to sincerely want to know it.
No, and sometimes people think, I want to do it by yourself. No one does anything by themselves.
They
You know
all
that.
want recognition. They all want to be heard.
And no one wants to, someone said, oh, he did it all by himself. You really?
No,
Probably
no,
not.
no.
It might be, he did a lot by himself, but everyone has mentors, advice.
And he's not doing it for the first time. It's been done
Exactly.
before,
Yes.
and it's been done
Exactly.
again. It's done again. No.
Yeah. So then stayed at the JCC for about, I think I was there for 7 years in total. But then the idea was to get bigger. Someone said, hey, so many people want to come, and you've got this great big waiting list. And it's so obvious, but it only took a while to work out. The great big waiting list, you remember in the day when it was impossible to get into school.
That's right. They could
You just
turn you away in
couldn't
a
get
heartbeat,
in.
yes.
Yeah. And everyone says, well, there are all these waiting lists. It's like, yes, but it's the same 50 people in every single preschool.
That's
that
what it
are
was,
waiting.
exactly.
So I'll start the new place, we would rent, splash down, get a new place.
The one by Nishimachi. No, it's
not
different.
quite there. It was close. It was in Minamiyazabu as well, but it was a 2-level school. I don't think you ever.
I never went to that one. No.
And so at that one, I had double the space, have 2 classrooms, and all the people on the wait list, they're not there anymore, obviously, because
they've gotten into the school.
So it took a little while to build that a bit, but then once we'd built that up, then the business really took off.
Was your wife with you yet?
Not yet, no. She was still at SACE.
Okay, so who was your partner there? Or do you have one?
I didn't have a partner, no. It was all mine, but
true.
I had people working with me.
Okay,
And Naoko, who you remember,
Naoko, yes.
she still works. Her daughter went all the way through Nishimachi. She still works at
Still
MST.
there,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah.
Even with the new people.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
Yeah, because we're going to get to that part eventually,
Yes.
where you're at now.
So the
How long were you
JCC
there? How long were you there?
In that building, probably about 3 or 4 years. And while I was there, I met someone who was interested in starting an elementary school, and because we at the time just went up from just from 3 to 6, so we'd gone a bit younger, about 2.5 to 6 year olds, and most of the kids would leave to do the kindergarten year in the big international schools. And that I remember at TAC they used to have the preschool roundup, right?
Always, yes. And you'd
every
be
year
there, have your little booth.
And some guy came up to me and said, "Are you a preschool or kindergarten?" And I said, "Yes." Because I'd never heard of this kindergarten terminology.
Oh, you hadn't?
No, well, kindergarten comes from the German, which means
Okay.
garden of children.
Okay.
And it's for children from 3 to 6 years old.
I didn't know it came from German. Germany, no.
The US have taken kindergarten to mean the year before first grade.
That's right.
You see, you said like it's natural. It's not natural
Free.
anymore. I've accepted it now because
Right.
Japan's
So what do you
very
have? What do you have in South Africa? What do you?
Kindergartens from 3 years old to 6 years before you go to first
Oh,
grade.
from 3 years old.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we have. What are you talking? Wait, what are you talking?
Because they don't call them all kindergartens. They call that last year kindergarten in America. The 5-year-old year. Check
That's
it out.
right. Right. That's
Yeah.
Oh no, I know that. No, you had to
and
be
the one
5 to
before
get
they
in.
called
Yeah.
it preschool.
We didn't have a preschool when I was growing up.
Yeah, no, that's
There was
true.
no parents. Your mommy
Yeah.
who stays at
She was the
home.
preschool,
She's
yeah.
a preschool.
Yeah.
You didn't have preschool, and my father put me in a year too early, which I suggest you never do to a boy.
No, you don't.
No.
I had the same other thing.
Really?
I was a year
pretty-
younger than my friends at
And
school.
and it's so devastating. I mean, even today I
Emotionally
can tell
hard.
sometimes
Yeah.
I was weaker, emotionally
So-
not as mature. Because the older they got, the smarter they were. The girls never wanted to be with me
That
because I was a
big
skinny
issue
one.
for you, Lance.
I was a skinny little kid. I was a skinny little kid. But isn't that
Yeah.
four?
Yes.
And I made sure all of my sons were a year older in all their grades.
So there's a name for that in the States. They call that red shirting. It was a big thing.
It's called what?
Red shirting.
Race shooting.
Red shirting.
How is that red shirting?
It's
Because
a
you know
name-
your kids are going to be. Okay.
So what they do, came after Malcolm Gladwell wrote his Outliers thing.
Okay.
And
I
they
read
found-
the Outliers, yes.
Okay, so all the hockey players who were really good at hockey in Canada in the league, you remember that?
Yes. Now I
Their
yes.
birthdays were after September.
Right. Right.
So they had to wait a year. They turned 6 very early in kindergarten.
Early,
They
right.
turned 7 very early in
Right.
first grade.
Right.
So then then parents were doing what they did red shirt when even if it's a July
Right.
birthday,
to
hold
wait,
him back.
pull him
here.
back.
And
So
he
he'd be the
starts at
biggest.
7.
That's right.
Yeah,
He'd be the
because
biggest.
at that age, as you say, physically,
This-
you're
the
not
more
the best
mature and everything.
sportsman. You're just bigger and stronger and
That's
faster.
right. That's right.
So you get
That's
the
all
first,
it takes.
but you
And
get
they
the best coaching.
and you're right.
Yeah.
They
And you get
consider
the-
you the leader. They always put
yes.
everything on you.
Yeah.
So I told my wife, which was hard to do because she's Japanese.
I can believe that.
Why put him back? I said, trust me on this. Just trust me because I know what it feels
'Cause
like to
you've
be
been
the
the other
youngest.
guy. Yeah.
Don't be that guy. And all of my sons thought they led their classes. They led their classes. What could I say?
Hey,
It worked.
It worked.
It
Good
worked.
for you. So this
I'd
was
say
a red shirt.
except for Lucian because Lucian was in his proper grade. He's the only
Okay.
one. Yeah. But
Yeah, but was he the youngest one?
but he had 3 older brothers that kept him straight, so he knew. He was good.
You're tired of being a parent of that.
He was good to
okay?
go. Yeah,
Just
yeah,
deal with
whatever,
it,
whatever,
mate.
whatever.
Those guys grow up the best because they don't have you don't make all your mistakes.
Don't you tease parents, because both of us are in the parent business with the kids, dealing with them. When they come in and you can tell, I always ask, I said, this is your first child, and you can usually tell because they're still looking at them, seeing if they're breathing, counting all their digits. Now if it's second or third, I say, is that your child? They say, which one?
Yeah.
They don't care less. It's because I got one good one. I don't care what the second one, especially if they're the same sex.
Oh, right.
If they're two different sexes,
Then maybe
they put
yeah.
the same kind of attention basically on them. But
Yeah, it's like our daughter, who's the younger one, Shani,
Right,
probably
yes.
better than Kimmy, maybe. Well, maybe, but both of them.
Yeah.
You knew Shani when she was,
Right.
yeah. Anyway, she always looks at the photo albums. There's a stack of the first ones. Oops.
She
Sorry.
would be glad she wasn't the third.
Yeah.
Because they would have been, you
Nothing.
said, we got it. Didn't we take pictures then?
I thought we did.
Right.
Yeah, so that's kind of standard, yeah. And then,
Yeah.
yeah, so when the guy came around to start the elementary school, I was like, well, if I'm ever going to try it, let's do it now. And the kids at that time were at Saysen and St. Mary's, because Marika was still teaching there at Saysen, so we could afford that. And then we thought, okay, well, let's bring them over here. And so we pulled them out to start the first elementary class. And
your kids were among the first?
they were the first class, yeah. There were 5 of them, my 2 kids and 3 kids of the teacher who we hired. So they were the first 5. So
Okay.
non-paying students.
And you took them how far?
From 6 years old to 12, 1st to 6th grade.
You actually got, so you built it up?
I wasn't the teacher, no. I wasn't
understand that,
playing-
but
yeah, that was the school. And this other guy had come in, he was a Japanese guy, he'd been living abroad for a while.
A silent partner, or was he?
No, he was involved, he was kind of doing the business and things, and he was quite into being involved in the school. Small business, you know, we worked together for 9 years, and the last 3, we said let's do 3-year assessments. The first 3 years was great, everything's growing. The second 3 years, like, you know, but okay, well, let's just keep going, see how it goes, because things were going well. And then after the 2008 Lehman's crash and then the earthquake in 11, then financially things were not going so well because all the foreigners were leaving. So then the issues come right to the fore, because you can't just paper it. Well,
anymore, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, well, we're still doing okay financially, so we can live with it, when we're not doing okay financially. And so, yeah, it didn't work out. We separated. And I went alone. I had to buy him out in the end. That was obviously what he needed or wanted, was some cash, so managed to do that. And yeah, I think most people at the school went from strength to strength after that. It was, you know, easier to, because I kind of acted probably a little bit like just made all the decisions, because I didn't feel he knew education, because he didn't. He hadn't studied education.
Okay.
But he wanted to be more involved in education, and I didn't really give him an opportunity. If I look back on it, what I did wrong, if I'd wanted him to stay. But at the end of the day, it might not have worked out just from personality. You know, small businesses often, that's what happens, right?
It's like a marriage.
Yeah.
It's no different.
You've got to work at it.
The thing I think that people don't think of their marriages, a lot of times they forget that that person that you're marrying, in most cases, has been without you for 20 years at least. They didn't have you in their life. And all of a sudden you're going to get with them and they're supposed to compromise all of the way they've been, and vice versa. That's why I think it's
got to be 2 ways.
It's got to be 2 ways.
So mine, I felt he didn't know the education, so I just leave that part to me, and then he'd like to, he wanted to. But anyway, long story, it didn't work. So once he was gone, then yeah, we managed to pay back all debts and things, and just.
Your wife was with you by then? Not yet.
She was not quite yet.
Okay.
I think.
You say I'm trying to pull her in.
When we started the elementary school, that's correct. That's when she.
Because the kids know in other schools now, so she can
once
leave.
Kids came to us.
That's good. She was there.
And actually, for a while, when we were doing okay, she quit Saysen and started a small little program called Little People, and it was just a mornings only program in our home in Sedagaya.
Okay.
And she loved doing that, and so she did that. And then when we moved to the big space in actually the first year we were in Azerbaijan, and then she'd stopped, she'd closed the Little People, but she was bored, so she said, "Have you got anything to do?" I said, "We've got plenty to do. We started in a school." So she came and started helping again.
Okay.
So she retired for about 3 days, and that was her back in work again. And so so we worked together for the last 10 years together, at least.
And that was just past the last 10 years.
Yeah, and then I was getting tired. I was trying to, the school was still doing well. We had people working, still had a decent reputation. And so I was trying to do a little bit less and hire people to do the things I didn't want. I never thought of that myself. I had to take someone. He was an executive coach and he was a parent, and he said, "Let me do some work with you." And he said, "You don't have to do it." I said, "Well, he said, "Some people don't think that's a crappy thing to do. You do."
That's right, because you've done this for so long.
And he said, "But you can hire people to do that." So I basically hired a few more, but started stepping down a little bit and grooming people to sort of take over and stuff. And then I was approached by someone who also runs a school in Turkey. Said, "Would you ever think of selling your school?" And I said, I don't know. I didn't know one could sell a school. What's that mean? And let's find out. And then that took a whole process of meeting, as I had an advisor who was helping me, and he would always term the people who were interested suitors. If you're another suitor, you need to meet.
Okay.
So for me, the legacy was kind of important. I didn't want to leave.
That's your only true baby.
Yeah, and you get
That's right.
some sort of venture capital people come in. One guy's representing.
But they're thinking about something different.
They just got to focus, and I said, okay, that's not going to work. So eventually, someone came in who I actually knew.
And you trust and stuff, yeah, right.
But we didn't know.
Did you have?
He knew I had a school, but I didn't know he was interested in a school. And then our brokers put us together. And he said to the guy, when the guy described the school, he said, I know that guy, that's Pete Juds' school. And he goes, well, how did you know that? And my guy calls and says, do you know this guy? I said, yeah, I know this guy. Yeah. So how do you know him? He said, he's the guy. I said, what guy? The guy. I think that, oh, okay. And then I saw he said, hey, so do we need those brokers? Yeah, we better keep the brokers.
Keep it because you already had them.
We got the contract. So fair enough. And they were still helpful, of course. Well, mine was particularly. Because I don't do the Japanese very well after all these years in Japan. Yeah. One of my, not regret necessarily, but the disappointment a little bit. That I don't speak better Japanese after so many
you don't
years.
have a need to.
Yeah, you get to know the people a bit better, and the culture, and you get to feel it.
Would you really?
I don't know.
I think it would help your ego, maybe. And the thing I found that Japanese helps me when I go on my trips, my motorcycle trips every summer, because people don't speak English, so I have to, and it makes me feel so good. But I don't feel like I need to be that much better. Okay. Because if I am, then what's the joy in the people I'm speaking to? I like them feeling they need to speak a little bit, and, because they have, and they know, and they love it, and they've gone home. They go home, and I know that I just talked to a foreigner. Now, if I speak in Japanese, it's just too much of an enigma to be for what?
Maybe.
And make it if I'm from any different tribe in Africa, and I don't have that accent, you're not going to feel the same way as the experience you would be expecting. Possibly. Italian person. If he comes and says, yo, man, wait just a minute. I was raised by black people, so no, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for me.
Anyway, so he was helpful for that, and it took a while. It's not that quick to do these things and to find out. Also, selling the. I like to say, I sold the stock in the school. I didn't really sell the school. I'm still part of the school. The school's still a part of me. This guy, he said, Pete, stay on as long as you want and come on.
So you have stock in the school?
No, I had.
Oh, you sold it. Sold it. Okay, so you just. Okay.
And he did say, do you want to keep some? And I said, no, I'd rather be all out. If I'm not controlling it, I'm a bit of a control freak.
So no, I got you.
I didn't want to do that, but I have my heart and emotion in the school, and my wife does too. And we have a contract with the guy still, another over 2 years to go still, of giving advice and assisting and helping, adding value where we can, and very comfortable relationship. The first 2 years after I'd sold the stock, I was the head of school, and we announced it, but a lot of people don't really read stuff. We did tell people,
but even if they did, you kept them informed. They know.
I kept them informed. The idea though was to make the transition smooth, and not have. Right. It can happen that people will just pull off and just I don't like.
You're not going to be here anymore, right? Yeah, you're not going to be here. I don't want to. Yeah.
But as I think before that, I had started stepping down a little bit to let other people become more the face of the school. But I was still the figurehead, as it were, with not doing much operationally until the nasty COVID kicked in. That was my last 6 months of head of school.
And then after that, as soon as it kicked in, you were still head of school.
I was head of school. It was from I think 2018. So I stayed head of school for 2 years, until 2020. But the first 6 months of 2020 was the whole COVID, and so then I got more. I had to be. Well, actually, one of the parents came to me and said, "Pete, people need to hear your voice, man. Get out there and start talking." Because I was just leaving the announcements to general kind of things, and so then I came back a little bit more. But the team, honestly, the one thing someone said, you seem to have quite a successful school. So I said, well, I got two things. One, I've been very lucky to be in the right place at the right time. And two, I think I hire good people. And that helped me build my school. And I left with good people. I made sure that everyone had, everyone could sign as long contracts up to 3. If you want a 3-year contract, give you one right now. And I told the new guy, this is how it's going to happen. This is going to be the head of school. This is what this is what you want. I'll keep it like this, and you'll be happy with it. knowing that it's his school, he can do whatever he wants with it, of course.
Right, of course.
But he's not trying to. He loves Montessori. He didn't know he was looking for Montessori, but when he found our school, he was just blown away with what it is. He's an entrepreneur. He wants to build entrepreneurial sort of mindsets in Japanese people. He wants to shake up the Japanese.
This is a Japanese person?
He's bicultural, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, like our kids are. So I think his dad's Australian. And
Okay,
yeah.
Mom is Japanese, yeah.
Yeah, so he grew up, he's in Japanese.
Yeah, right.
But he, he's very enthused about what we're doing and how we're doing it.
Okay.
No pressure on, looking. He's not just looking for a return. Oh, look, he needs to.
Of course, he needs to keep it in business. Yeah,
of course, it's in business. But it's not. Doesn't want to impact. He doesn't want the education and the pedagogy to be based on how much money.
Right.
He's very, very good with that.
Right.
And I think when he meets parents, he's good. People get excited. Staff are excited by what his ideas are. He's a good guy, and but he's hands off in terms of operation. So he still wants me to be a little bit play that role for him.
And you're doing that. You're going to.
Some, yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, in my time.
So that's what do you have? So now that you've gotten yourself away, even though you're still going to be helping, that gives you a lot more time to do other things. And do you mind sharing some of those other things you?
Yeah. So my big thing for the past, I guess, 5 years or so, Marika and I've been supporting an NGO in South Africa, and when I told you way back when the hitchhiker told me about Montessori and I went and visited a Montessori school in Cape Town, that person there I was reconnected with. The first school I ever saw, because she was starting this non-profit thing to help develop Montessori schools in rural parts of South Africa.
She never left.
She was still there all the time.
That's
yeah.
neat. That's neat.
And so we started supporting this, because we set up a little non-profit here, my wife, and a foundation, which is it's like this way, Ipanshalan Hojin.
Okay.
We set one up, just a small one, and was able to ask families who knew I knew. I didn't really want to push it with the school and anything like that. Particularly now it's not mine, but so people who knew would donate, and we got it, and we'd send the donations through. Some very generous donations as well from certain people who say, "Oh, I really like that," yeah, and people who've got there's people with means, so that's so we've been supporting that, and some of our own money as well, but we've been supporting that for a while. And then I wanted to get more hands-on. So about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, maybe, no, 3 years ago actually, I went to visit one of these this training center, and it's in a place called Coffee Bay, which is in an area I think I mentioned it.
You did, yes.
It's the Maguli.
Do that again so everyone can really hear that.
It's really hard.
Do it again.
It's a mwah like that. Maguli.
Guli.
Yeah, that's very good. Area. And of the eastern province of South Africa, the Eastern Cape. And there's a small training center there, and we train teachers. And when we started supporting them, they just finished their 4th school, and there now are 7 schools which they've seeded. Basically, we don't start the schools at all. We train the teachers. They also get a qualification which is recognized by the government, so they can get funding, and then they can then start a school. They need to find land. They usually ask the chief, because it's still very rural. The chief owns all the land. That's just how it is. Chief always owns. Traditional chiefs are recognized by the new constitution in South Africa as well. They still own all the land. So you've got to ask the chief, and he'll say, okay, there's an empty one, you can use that for your school. And there are 7 that we've seeded, and then there's 2 more that have asked our group to oversee them, because they've been funded by either missionaries or people who've also tried to fund schools in the area.
Do you know what the overall goal is? Of course, to educate people, but I mean, how massive do you think? Where's going to be the tipping point? So
it's small schools of anywhere between 6, and the biggest school we have has 62 classes or 3 classes of 20 children each, so it's 60 kids there. So the idea is not to get bigger really, although the kids are getting older, and so some of the people are like, well, we want our kids to keep going to this Montessori system. So they're just in the process of doing an elementary school. Well, they've had one for a while, but they haven't been finding a proper trained Montessori teacher. It's very out of the way. It takes ages to get there. The last 70 kilometers to get there takes about 2.5 hours, I think, just because of potholes and roads. And I think it's 2 hours, an hour and a half maybe, I'm exaggerating. I think it's an hour and a half it's a long way to get there.
So do you see yourself going there to help out with that? Or
Yeah, I was there recently, but I didn't get to be there, unfortunately, because COVID's just shut that place down and the training wasn't allowed to take place. But I was in South Africa hoping to go and train people for a month, but I didn't. But yes, I would like to be there at least once a year, if not twice a year.
So that's the plan. That
is what I'd like to do, yeah. How I'm going to realize that, I don't know. Because, I mean, I'm still working here, obviously, helping out here. Although I can advise from wherever I am, of course.
That's true.
And the new owner is very, as I said, very generous with time for me. He's not trying to pin me down to hours in a day or days in a month or anything like that. Just, if he's got some help, needs some help, or thinks I can add my expertise to some things.
Right. Your kids are out of the house now, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They are.
So where are they? Do you mind me asking?
No, my daughter's in South Africa.
She's in South Africa, right?
She's been there for about 2 years.
Right.
We never registered her as a South African citizen.
So she's just Japanese,
so
being
she's Japanese there, but she's having visa issues. She's trying to get her citizenship now as a late registration, and of course everything's shut down because of COVID.
Right, of course.
So all they do is they extend all the visas. They just announce. They say, okay, all the visas which are expired. Because you can't renew a visa. You can do nothing.
You can do nothing. So you're just there. You're just there.
So she's just there. It's hard to work for her because some of the people say, "What's your ID number?" She doesn't know, "Well, you can't work here." So so she's sort of doing, casual on the sort of casual employment section, finding odd jobs here and there. And my son is, he went to film school in LA, and he's a skateboarder at heart. Still is passionate about.
He was a good baller too. He played basketball. He was really good.
He was very athletic.
He was good
at soccer.
He
played varsity basketball. He played varsity soccer.
That's right.
Anyway, his passion is kind of art and design and fashion and graphic design and movie making and all that. So he's got together like a collective of a group of guys with various skills, and they like to put on events and that.
Okay.
But to pay the bills, he has to work he works retail. He sells.
He's doing it. Yeah.
He isn't enjoying it.
How long has he been there?
Over 2 years now.
Over 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he was in LA trying to make it there, but he couldn't get residency there in LA. We tried, paid the lawyer and did the application and that, but it didn't come through. So he came back, and he loved the States, so he really wanted to stay there. But now he's settled.
So he's here.
He's here in Japan. Yeah.
But he has his own place.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
A little bit bigger than this, little basement.
All right. That's how you got to start somewhere.
Hey,
most definitely.
When you're 20, that's what you can afford.
That's what you do. Wow. So anything else that you have that you wanna, that you have on the table that you're
on the table now?
that you're pursuing? Because you're quite the squash player. I know that. I don't know if you're
not
keeping
very good.
it up.
I just play a lot.
You play a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that. So yeah, doing that. I'm enjoying having more time, I guess, to not do that.
Yeah.
The new head, as I said, I worked with him for 17 years. He was the assistant head of school for the last 6 of those. He really knows my mind. So he said, "Pete, you can come here to give me advice, but I know what you're going to say." And I'm the head of school now, pal. So I said, "Yeah, you're the head of school. You're right. So if you need me, here I am." So he doesn't really. I mean, he does. Of course, he'll call me and say, "Hey, Pete, what about this? What would your advice be?"
Of course, he'll still pass it by you.
And I give the advice, and he can take it or not, which is very nice for me. I don't have this stress. So, he's really good at what he does. I think he's far more of a planner and a sort of an overt leader than I ever was. I just kind of do my thing and, "Hey, you want to come with me? This is what we're doing." Whereas he's more like, "I think we're going to do this, this, and this," and he puts it in place. And he's got there's some very good people there. Now I can't take credit for all of them. They've since him I hired, but other people have obviously been hiring people now, and the team still is. It seems to be a very efficient and good team. But schools, it's getting bigger because the new guy, he wants to start a high school, the new owner. So the high school is the next.
Is it the same location that it was before?
We're going to be, no, we have to find some other space.
But that's where you are. You're still in the same place.
We're still there, just near Nishi, just still there. And we've got 3 different buildings now. The one's right opposite, and we've got another campus which is about 6-minute walk away. Yeah, so where we now house the middle school, which is growing. So we've had a middle school for about 5 years now, which has been around. But it's never been more than, I think, 14 students has been the highest in there. So, but it's okay. They do amazing stuff. The middle school is really awesome. So the next thing that I guess is the high school. I'm really intrigued to see how it is that, because I've seen quite many high schools around, mostly in the States, and one in, where did I see one in Prague? I think we were there for a Montessori thing. But generally, They're not that common. 3 to 6 is the most common Montessori classroom.
Yes, yes.
Earlier than that, they're quite common as well. Elementaries, most elementary schools in most big cities. Middle schools, you could be finding. High schools, still few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
So interested to see how it's very much like a college, to be quite honest, when they're in high school.
Mm-hmm.
Very independent, all
Right,
independent learning.
right. You're encouraged to
kids
find
sometimes
something
come from another school, so what must I do today? What
do you want to do today?
Yeah, exactly. What do you
exactly,
want to do today?
So they're
Maybe we
encouraged
can
to
help you
follow
do
their
it.
passion, right?
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
We do that, yeah. I'm kind of familiar with the Montessori system.
I know you
and
looked
watch
at a lot of stuff.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's most definitely a different way.
That's what we're doing now is looking towards that. But we need a stable base.
Mm-hmm.
I think the idea was to start it very quickly. And I said, you can't start a high school if you've got 13 kids or 12 kids in your middle school. We need to have like 40 to 50 kids first to be able to.
Otherwise, because
we get so many foreigners and people are leaving.
That's right. They leave. Yeah. You just
and I think we're going to be. I'm not sure. Really, we did a lot of discussions, but the high school probably is going to be much more bilingual, or a bilingual school as opposed to an international school with a few Japanese kids.
I see.
Because they're the ones that
That's
stay.
right. Tell me about it.
They'll come in.
You can only
they'll
depend
stay.
upon that. That's your base.
That's the best.
That's what you have to do. Do you plan on staying in Japan indefinitely, or do you see yourself going back to South Africa sometime in your life, taking your wife with you, or saying we have a long distance relationship again?
I would love to. My wife's a Tokyo lady, man. She's a Tokyo woman through and through.
You would love to?
I would love to go to South Africa, I think.
Is that right?
Yeah.
The latter years of your
But
life?
who was that band, A very big metal band.
I forget.
My Woman from Tokyo.
Is that the song?
Yeah.
And she just loves Tokyo?
She's
born and raised here?
Born and raised, just outside, but Kanagawa, and went to school here, and spent 5 years in Australia as a kid. That's why English is fluent, because she went to international schools. So my daughter's in South Africa, and she said, "Come on, bring Mum and can we bring him over this week?" She loves it there. She wants to live there. So we'll see. Probably if we can afford to do both.
We both, right. 6 months there, whatever.
And we're not leaving now. We bought property finally after all these years. We bought, and I think you gave me some advice once.
What did I?
Don't buy anything, just rent.
Here.
We rent everything on this
Here.
earth. Yeah.
Here. It's all on rent.
Yeah.
It's all on loan.
That's what you
Isn't
said.
it?
Even your body.
I like hearing from people that I've talked to a long time ago to see how consistent
Your messages.
and my messages, and am I still following it? But I find they're very simple messages, and I don't know how to. I'm too dumb to realize anything else in life, so I'm pretty consistent. I try to be. What I do, I try to follow what I say, because that's the best way to raise your kids.
Yeah.
Show by example. So
This is it. Yeah.
my sons made me cut. They didn't make me, but I got tired of them coming over to the house, to our apartment, taking their clothes off except for their boxer trunks, and showing this lean cut body with no fat on it around my wife. I didn't appreciate that. See? So I got myself nice and lean now. Mine isn't quite as tightly packed, but still, I'm lean enough to feel good.
To walk around in your boxes.
To walk around in my boxes if I want to. And it takes that. I think you got to show.
You might cut that one out there, Lance.
I might have to cut that out. I might have to cut that out.
Up to you, man.
Whatever.
So I think the future is probably the swallow, because we get the summertime there is December, January, February, man. It's just awesome.
Beautiful, yeah.
And long distance, I think, we did a little bit. It was tough. This last time I was away from my wife for quite a while.
Were you?
Yeah.
Oh, she stayed where you were?
She stayed, yeah. We've got a very old dog who needs a lot of care. And
That's family member. You got to keep that member.
He has to we give him a shot twice a week and stuff like this. So he's sort of he's very old. But anyway, he's hanging in there. So we'll see.
Pete, I want to thank you for taking the time to do this with me.
Absolutely.
I've enjoyed it.
Yeah.
You're a little tense, but I want you to be more relaxed. Next time, I say this with some other people, let's do it over some beer, some alcohol or something.
Do that first.
So it'll be the next one. And do it while we're doing it, while we're talking. Because you're not teaching at school anymore. I mean, it's done. You can
I've put on a collar shirt.
You know what I mean?
We had lunch downstairs.
I had to put on one too. Because we have to have a collar.
Yeah,
and if I'm going to have lunch before, you can't do it without a collar. Otherwise, I'd be in what I'm usually in.
Exactly.
I prefer that.
Okay.
I want to thank all of you for watching this. And if you have any questions, any comments, please post them down on the bottom. Pete wants to hear from you. I want to hear from you. Like this video or this podcast, and also subscribe. We look forward to hearing from you soon and look forward to the next one.